everyone, and welcome to AC Spotlight. Today, I'm joined by Mark, the author and creator of Adventures Call. Hi.
Hi, how are you today?
I am doing great. I'm really excited to pick your brain, considering that you have a lot of TTRPG history, and you've sort of utilized that to build your brand new system. I would love to sort of do a deep dive into Adventures Call. Before I do so, what is your TTRPG history?
So I probably started playing back in around 1979 with the Holmes Basic set and continued on to first edition AD&D and played probably throughout my college years. And then as I became a father and got involved in work life and all that kind of thing, I had less and less time for it. So it sort of fell by the wayside. And here in recent years, as I have time freeing up, as I become an empty nester and as I'm maybe moving towards doing some things that are a little more fun with my free time than what I had been doing, I kind of got back into it, and I was ready to kind of jump back into it by publishing some content for D&D, world building kind of episode and sort of the world of Greyhawk updated or something along those lines. Which is what I was calling Anthura, is the name of the world that I was building. And about the time I was ready to start that, the gaming license changed for D&D, and I was like, well, that's not really going to work for what I was going to do. So I kind of looked back at the way I had played the game and what I liked about it and what I didn't like about it. And I thought, well, here's an opportunity, as you know, I think there's going to be a lot of diversification in role-playing games and people finding kind of niche games that suit their table. This might be an opportunity for me to rewrite the rules the way I would have been the way I would have done it if I was king 20 years ago.
Oh man, that's living the life. The fact that you're able to sort of settle back into this amazing hobby, and from what you just told me right now, you were building content way before you started to work on Adventures Call. Do you mind giving us maybe a little bit of like a brief rundown of like maybe like one of the other top products you've made?
So like I said, I've been working on world building in this world setting called Anthura. And a lot of what I have been doing through the years as an environmental scientist and as a military officer and that kind of thing has kind of informed a lot of what I have done, or the way I see things over and in my world building and that kind of thing, and some of the things that I have looked at in terms of sort of the rule mechanics for Adventures Call as well.
That's interesting. How has your professional life how has that affected the way you've done storytelling and sort of world building as opposed to like other GMs out there?
Yeah, I think when I look at storytelling and world building, although it's a fantasy setting, I feel like the more realistic you can make it in terms of, ecological networks and things along those lines that actually work and make sense to you, makes it an easier world to play in, while you still can figure out ways to incorporate other things along those lines. One of the key mechanics that I wanted to build into Adventures Call is my understanding that most of the world kind of follows what's known as a normal distribution or a bell curve or that kind of thing. And one of the key mechanics that I built into it, that you don't have to be a statistics nerd to kind of figure it out. And a lot of what I did was kind of biostatistics when I was doing environmental science thing, was that it's built in there so that rare events are truly rare, whether they're good events or bad events. And most events tend to be clustered around the typical or the expected and that kind of thing. So while there's lots of opportunity for epic things to happen, it's not a 1 in 20 chance like it is with a natural 20 or something like that, where there's an even chance of everything happening all the way across the board on a particular roll.
Oh, interesting. Okay, no, that makes sense. But now I'm curious, when it comes to now, let's switch over to Adventures Call as a whole. It sounds like to me that your own past experience with TTRPGs, sort of getting back into it, as well as seeing sort of the landscape, it sounds like you had sort of your own perspective and preference when it came to building Adventure's Call. Was that sort of the key motivator, beyond obviously the creator rights and how sort of that was handled? Was that sort of the main, like the spark that started the building of Adventure's Call?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of things that I always thought were like kind of holes in the rules that were a little weird. That it gave me the chance to massage and get them to a situation that I liked. But I was looking at, what kind of fantasy fiction involved me, and I realized at the time I started writing this, at least, there was a definite gap in kind of folkloric fiction or folkloric fantasy, those kind of things. So if you think kind of along the lines of, Grimm's fairy tales are not really for children, or some of the things that you get from
not the original
European or Slavic mythology that kind of come in there. So it's kind of maybe a more folkloric kind of thought to the process than kind of Tolkien-esque high fantasy or Howard's Hyperborea or that kind of thing along those lines.
Yeah, it sounds like you focused more on sort of the original intention of these folklores of like you mentioned too, like the Grimm's tales. A lot of that it was supposed to be like a morality you're supposed to learn from it, but it was always so violent in the results of what occur. But it's because I guess it was meant to scare villagers or kids of like don't lie, or along those lines,
right? Or you can even look back at some things that were inspirational to Tolkien that were written like in the late 1880s and 1890s, like the fairy princess and that kind of thing that was written back then, and that kind of ties the bridge in there and has a lot of interesting meat to kind of develop a system from.
Yeah. Well, speaking of meat, obviously, and I've looked over in terms of like the character sheet and everything else, comparing it to sort of the well-known system we all know, which is Dungeons and Dragons. It's less dense, which I think is very appreciated, especially for those who are just getting into TTRPGs. It's not as crunchy, which I think is very appreciative, especially in this space here. There was really a fun mechanic that I saw, and I hadn't had the chance to check out. Which, by the way, I know you're still working on it, and you're at the time where you're ready for people to test it out. It's a good, healthy size. I'm telling the audience, it's a great size of a document that you shared. So I haven't had the chance to go through it all, but there was a luck mechanic, and I was wondering if you can explain further on what the luck mechanic actually provides players.
Yeah. So the luck is an inherent skill of all the adventurers in Adventure's Call. And adventures is the term that is used in the book for player characters. And
then narrator for like sort of the game master, right?
Right. Narrator is the name for the game master in it. So every player gets a certain amount of luck that's rolled for them by the narrator at the beginning of the story. So they never quite know how much luck they have. But at any time they can, try and press their luck or test their luck. And if they have a point that's there to, they will be able to dictate the outcome of that particular event that they're testing their luck against. But of course, if they test their luck and they have none left, and they don't know how many they started with or how many times they've used it, then exceptionally bad things can happen in that case. Yeah, so that's a rather simple one that's out there, but yeah.
It's so simple, but it's such a fun concept of allowing the narrator having sort of the resources already in mind of what's given to the players and the players don't know. And it makes so much sense with sort of the phrase of testing your luck or pushing your luck. I think that's such a unique and such a fun concept of a mechanic. I think and I mentioned before how healthy this book is, because not only have you built the rules for the game, you've also have a breakdown on some pre-made characters. The actual documentation showcases like a monster list and adventure module. sort of like a test adventure that players and or narrators and adventurers can go through.
Right.
Was there a section of the book that you just enjoyed more than the rest?
Well, I think as far as a mechanic goes, my favorite mechanic in it goes with player advancement and how that moves in the thing. So, and what it does is there's a rubric in there for the narrator to look at the end of every gaming session, which is the timing for rewards tokens or advancement tokens to be earned. And they're really earned on the basis of 3 categories. One is how successful the adventure was according to what their goals were. The second one was their actual engagement in role playing. So it actually rewards role playing and taking on the character and portraying the character at the table. And then the third one is looking at the motivations and vices and virtues of your character and playing according to those. So when setting up a character, kind of determining your virtues and vices is an important role in that, and it has a direct effect then on how rapidly your character advances, to the extent that you as the player portray your adventure in accordance with those things that you have set up as your reason adventuring in the first place.
That's so cool. That it very much incentivizes players to really sort of play out their adventure as the way they've written. And I could imagine probably personalities can change, but having that or sort of a stat block of how well did the adventure go, it almost always having that simply there always encourages players to really play as a team, play true to their characters. That could honestly, that might even alleviate a lot of problems that some parties get into, where there's one bad actor who probably is working against their own character.
Right, and I mean, part of it is that when you do that, it takes away some of just people coming not being engaged at the table, but it also takes away problems like murder hobos and that kind of things as well. Yeah. Because you're not killing monsters and raiding things just to gain points by killing monsters and gaining gold. You are gaining advancement based upon whether it actually is moving the ball forward in your overall story arc and that kind of thing. So it looks at it that way.
That's
and
incredible.
Then similarly along that line, there's not really an alignment, but one of the fun parts to write was the idea of scarring, whether it's physical, emotional, or moral scarring. But moral scarring is kind of the interesting part there. So rather than having alignments that people kind of have to play to, I'm making the assumption that everyone's kind of at the table probably going to be a neutral or a good character, and by failing to do that, they are subject to moral scars, which can be an interesting addition to their role-playing thing as well. In fact, vampirism is really, there aren't really vampires as monsters. Vampirism is one of the moral scars you can contract by doing bad things or immoral things along the way. So that was kind of interesting.
That's so cool. Yeah, you've solved numerous problems by having one simplistic sort of additive to the character creation process, which, that I honestly think that might be a good seller in terms of for other TTRPG players of not having to want to deal with the Reddit horror stories of bad players or sort of experiencing, someone sort of taking the spotlight. You've solved a problem. That's so cool. I've looked at the book as well, sort of going beyond that. There's some really fun monsters that you've sort of added into it. And you mentioned yourself, you were very inspired by folklore and sort of the creatures, or at least the monsters introduced in that. Is there a particular monster that you have kind of attracted to? You've leaned more towards, you always go back to it whenever it comes to examples of an encounter in your game?
I'm not sure that there is. I think a lot of that depends on the setting, and I like to develop settings according to the preferences of the people at my table. So if we're running a maritime setting where they're kind of running as pirates, that's one thing. Whereas if they're kind of running a, the most recent one I just ran was a very small group, and they were basically, it was like almost a police procedural mystery that I ran. So very kind of different things. So I think it really kind of depends on the setting and that kind of thing. But yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily say there's one. I think I really kind of fleshed out Fae as a whole kind of pantheon, and there's a lot of that that draws particularly from Celtic mythology and that kind of thing. If you look at the names of some of the characters, and if they're actual named characters or monsters, for lack of a better word, or that you'll see a lot of them will have kind of Gaelic names and with a transliteration so people can pronounce them, which could be difficult.
Right.
In some.
In terms of the I guess the setting that Adventurous Call sort of really focuses on, with the character creation options available, it definitely does sort of fit more of sort of a fantastical Conan the Barbarian-esque at times. So I think even the introduction, it could be set in a high or low magical world, or maybe just no magic at all. Is that sort of the setting that you're hoping to attract? Are those?
So initially the Anthera world that started out as a world building is kind of a very unique setting that I have in my head, where most of the technology is at the Bronze Age level. So it's kind of a Bronze Age fantasy adventure of that kind of thing. Although that's for humans, for dwarves have advanced in one way, and elves are advanced in other ways. So maybe more so than that. But basically, humans have a technological disadvantage to start the game, but have other advantages. They're more adaptable and some things along those lines. But that's very unique to that setting. When I came up with Adventurous Call, I really endeavored to try and keep it as system agnostic as possible, or setting agnostic as possible, so that it could be, if you want to run a Conan Barbarian kind of setting, you could do that. If you wanted to do, kind of high Tolkien-esque kind of setting, that would work as well. I think I mentioned somewhere in there, I think there's even possibility to do an expansion where you would have sort of early age of gunpowder or something along those lines in there. But I really spent a lot of time trying to the extent you can say a magic system is realistic, infuse some realism into the magic system. That's a effort that took me a lot of time to come up with. So there's very few spells actually detailed, because I think one of the main role-playing bits of fun you can have, as if you're a caster of some kind, is doing spell research. And so doing spell research is really built into the way that a caster would role-play his character. And so that's one of the things that kind of goes with it. And there's a certain number of very kind of simple ones, so that even as a caster, you can get involved in adventuring and contribute to a group. Right off the bat, it's not like you're an AD&D level 1 wizard with 4 hit points and a dagger, running around behind 4 barbarians in a dungeon hoping you can survive it. You have a good opportunities to adventure in that position. But as you advance, the whole idea of developing new spells within what I refer to as the canon of magic, or the ordinance is the other name for it, which you have to research your spells in ways that fit the rules. And I think so. Magic has a cost, is one of them, and so the more you're willing to, put into it, the more valuable things that are used in it, maybe the more successful you are in success that spell. Or one is, that chaos rules. So the more narrow you craft the magic that you're trying to do, the less chaos has an influence into it, and the more likely you are to be successful. So there's, I think, 8 rules in the canon, and to the extent that you follow them more closely in doing your spell research, the spells are more likely to be successful.
That's great. It allows, within the rules means, to allow players to be creative with spellcraft and creation, and allow them, like I've known players who are like, they want to be laser focused on a particular way to cast a spell, and this allows, sort of built for it. And the reason why I was asking about the setting,
the same spell, but if you're playing sort of a bardic character, your way of casting it might be, playing something upon your lute,
strumming a lute, the vibrations of the energy, something like that.
That kind of bardic character, or maybe it's a dance of some kind if you're completely different kind of bard and that kind of thing. So the way in which you cast the spell is going to be particular to the kind of character that you want to play, and that's an important thing to kind of mention that I don't think we've mentioned yet either, is there aren't really classes per se. It's built on your character is built on skills that you choose, and you can mix and match skills in any kind of way that you want to. There's not a whole lot of rules of that. I think you can't choose berserking as a skill if you're a gnome, I think, is one of the rules that's kind of off the wall in there. It just kind of seemed a little strange to me that you might want to do that, but for the most part, yeah. So if you wanted to combine thievery and enchantment, which is the type of magic that affects people's minds and their ability to sense things, that makes a whole lot of sense to do, but it's not really dual classing or multi-classing in the way that D&D would think of it. It's just the way that you develop your character as kind of an arcane thief, or someone who uses a little something more than subtlety to get your way.
Right. Yeah, there's a little bit of a magical influence when it comes to their more physical skill sets. In addition to not having classes, there's no initiative rolls in Adventurous Call. Everything is sort of, I think the way you've labeled is that it's more realistic and more lethal.
Right. So within a combat turn, which is an events driven rather than a time phase. If you think about combat and some of the things that we've learned from HEMA, which is historical European martial arts, kind of, if the people aren't familiar with that term, it's that within a minute or 2 minute period, there are multiple strikes by both people and by both opponents, and it's unlikely that neither one of them is going to connect at all in that 1 or 2 minute period. If you've ever seen a HEMA bout or something like that, it's pretty fast and furious. Now, armor might prevent damage from those from things or those type of things, but the chances that within that period, both are going to come out unscathed is pretty rare. So in almost every and I kind of looked at HEMA statistics when I was coming up with this, almost every bout doesn't last longer than 5 minutes. And so my thing was kind of like 5 combat rounds should decide a winner, and 5 combat rounds should probably take about 5 minutes. So while there's enough grittiness in the combat that you can, that includes parrying or dodging or shield bashes and that kind of thing that you can apply, or feinting. It includes enough of those kind of tactics to make it interesting. You don't really kind of get bogged down on, what's my max min kind of way to handle this opponent, and the strategy doesn't take 15 minutes to plan what your next attack is.
Right. No, I think that's perfect, and I think that obviously your strategy, especially in combat or even outside of it, depends on the character you're building, which leads me to my next thing is that I currently on another window, I currently have an Adventurous Call character sheet up right now, and I would love for you, if you don't mind, walking me through to make my very first character in Adventurous Call.
Sure.
Is that something you're okay with?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Amazing. So, in terms of the stats that start off, oh, actually, I should ask you, what should I start off first? Should it be selecting my race, or should I start selecting like my stats?
I think generally speaking, it's best to pick which of the peoples that you're at. And I specifically use the term peoples because um, I've kind of tried to handle some of the difficult conversations you can have along those lines by saying each of the peoples is a related but different humanoid species. So there's limited opportunities for progeny and those kind of things and that kind of thing, and try and get away from some of the real world challenges we face when we try and run role playing games. So, but I would pick which people you belong to, probably as your first choice, because that has some advantages and disadvantages as you look. For example, if you would pick an elf character, you would have your choice of increasing either your agility or your perception by one trait level later on. So probably picking that's the first, or you can kind of start in reverse and say, well, this is the kind of character I would like to have, and then kind of build them backwards. So I guess you have a character archetype in mind, that might be the way to do it too.
I think, yeah, in terms of archetype, I think what I would like to, I think you've kind of sold me on this concept of sort of an arcane trickster, someone who uses a bit of magic for deception for a bit of thievery. So I think I would like to make some sort of magical thief.
Okay. There are lots of good choices with that. In fact, that doesn't really matter which of the peoples you would pick to do that. Goblin might be an interesting one, because I think goblin characters are not widely ran in a lot of different campaigns, or that they're a choice for PCs, or as we call them, adventurers.
Adventurers, heck yeah, I love it. I will be happy to play as a goblin in Adventurers Call. Something a little small, not really heavily seen, or could maybe blend in a little better. Incredible. So we've chosen our peoples. I'm actually going to the document you've sent me. I'm going to scroll up a little bit because I just had goblins up. So they are considered a small size. Let's see here. I might be looking at. Oh no, there it is. So most goblins are an average of around 3 to 4 feet, 60 pounds. Incredible. They have a special. This says 2% chance to be a character with individual skills and have novice stealth skills. Oh, so it almost seems like they're already imbued to a little bit have kind of being stealthy peoples just by sort of a natural thing. Okay. What do we do?
My rules alongside here to kind of follow along with you there.
Okay. What is after we selected our people? What do we should we go through stats? Like there's stamina.
So the next is the primary traits, and so primary traits are those that you are kind of born with, and they're not necessarily fixed throughout the game. They can increase a little bit, but they kind of, if you look at nature versus nurture, this would be the nature. It's kind of those inherent biological traits that you have, and their wit, will, might, endurance, health, and agility. So and sociability. So the way that we do that is you would roll 4 dice 6 and add 2 to it.
Okay. Well, we're dice people. You and I, we always have dice at the ready. Okay. Do I need to give you the total, or do I need to say individually each one?
No, just total.
Okay. That's going to be 12, and then 13 plus what?
2.
2, so 15.
15. So if you turn to page 11, if you have my thing up,
I absolutely do.
You'll see you actually use those. What did we say? 13 points, 15 points.
15, yeah.
15 points to buy your trait levels. So lacking is level 1, that would cost 1 point. Typical is level 2, that would cost 2 points. Above average is level 3, that would cost 3 points. Gifted is level 4, that costs 6 points. Heroic is level 5, but you have to put at least 1 into everything, so you're not probably going to be able to buy heroic level in anything.
Very cool. Oh, I see. That is incredible. Okay. With 15 points. Okay, so this has become okay, I got it. This is now interesting. I think what I'm gonna do, so I have 15 points, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, so I think I'm gonna do, there's gonna be a lot. I think we're gonna do 3 in agility. Because I think, we want to be stealthy. I think it makes sense. 3 in agility. And then I think I'm gonna do just 3. You see, what would be?
You will get whatever you pick for your will as a goblin. You will be able to add 1 trait level to that.
Okay, then I'm gonna do a 2 for will, so we're at 5. I think I'm gonna do 2 for perception, so now we're at 7. Wit is gonna be 1, 8, 9, 12. I'm gonna put 1 all across the board, so now I have 3 to work with. I'm gonna do 2 for health. So 2, 4, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I have 2 more points to work with. And I'm going to do 3 to wit.
Okay.
So I'm looking at 2 perception, 3 wit, 2 will, 1 might, 1 endurance, 2 health, 3 agility, and 1 sociability.
Right. And so you've already added that 1 to will for goblin?
No, I didn't. If that's the case, I think I'm gonna keep it at 3 then, and I'll put that extra point. I'm gonna put that in.
Well, no, it's specifically for will.
Oh, okay. Well, I will. Okay, then I moved that point, assuming that I didn't have it.
Points around. Okay.
So I'm gonna move it to might. I'm gonna give it to might. So I'm gonna have a 2 might. There we go.
Okay, so then that establishes your primary traits. And those don't change in the game, except through something like aging or battle scars or something along those lines. So those are relatively fixed in place. But so then we move to secondary traits, which are the things that do change throughout the game. And these are the ones you would keep track of. So these are vitality points, which are sort of like hit points, but not really. They don't actually go up very much as you increase in rank. They kind of stay the same. And again, that's kind of a nod to kind of realism in fantasy wargaming.
Right.
It's the idea in combat from D&D that hit points were took into account your skill as a warrior as well made sense, but then that makes sense until you fall down a hole. And you shouldn't be your skill as a warrior shouldn't help you any more falling down 3 stories than it should anyone else. And so and actually as you go, so my argument was as you go up in level you should actually take more damage from falling if you're playing actual D&D. So this kind of gets away from that, and it is actually kind of just your physical health level. So your secondary trait of vitality would be your health plus 6.
Okay, so my health is 2 plus 6 is going to be 8. So I have an 8 vitality.
Vitality, right?
Okay.
Your mana is the source of your ability to cast spells. That's your wit plus 6.
Wit plus I put a 3 into wit up 6, so it's a 9. Pretty good.
So that's going to be pretty good. So in terms of low level spells, that you might be able to cast as many as 9 per day. Even as a starting player.
Okay, that gives you a lot of resources. I like that.
Yep. Morale is equal to your will trait level, but it's really is your will trait level, except it will change, whereas your will doesn't. So your morale might change based upon how combat is going, or seeing a chimera for the first time, or something along those lines.
But baseline, it would be a 2.
Might affect your morale. It doesn't affect your overall will, which is a biologic thing. So that's your morale is equal to your will. And then your stamina is equal to twice your endurance.
Oh, no. My endurance is a 1, so I'm hitting at a 2.
So twice that plus 4.
Okay, so we're hitting at a 6. That's feels a little better, but good to know. Good to know.
All right. So again, there's a lot of non-quantifiable traits. Physical attractiveness, anything like that, is not really a quantifiable trait in terms of game mechanics. It may have to do with role playing or something like that. And so now we move to skills. Your selection of skills. And so there's a whole list of skills there. They're set into adventuring skills versus occupational skills. And they go for several pages. But choosing them is novice. You get novice in 3 and practitioner in it. So in terms of venturing skills, you would get novice in 3 skills and practitioner either in 1 or novice in 1. Let me say that again. It didn't come out clear.
No
Either
worries.
novice in 3 adventuring skills, or practitioner in 1 and novice in 1.
I think for the simplicity's sake of this experiment, I think I would do practitioner for 1 and novice in 1.
Right, and then for occupational skills, it's novice in 2 or practitioner in 1.
Okay, let's do more. So we'll do 2 practitioner, 1 novice for the entirety, for all of it all. Yeah.
Right. So you probably want to choose stealth as 1.
Got it.
Would be one that you would probably want to pick.
I'm gonna say practitioner for that one.
Practitioner for that one. And in terms of so magical skills, you would pick one of the schools, which are wizardry.
Yeah, there's a few of them.
Which is mastering time, dimension, and energy. Necromancy, which is what you might think it is in terms of the magic of life and death, but it's not necessarily in Adventures called themed necessarily evil. For example, you might.
There's like arguments that like healing spells are also considered a bit of necromancy.
Dead to rest permanently is actually a necromancy kind of flavor. So if you're someone who's interested in sort of cleric things because you're going to be turning undead or that kind of thing, that's actually a necromancy track.
Right.
Apotropaecy, which is healing and blessing and protection. Enchantment, which deals with operating on the mind and sensory system, emotions, beliefs, cognition of the target. And elementalism, which is earth, air, fire, and water. So probably I would recommend enchantment would be a good one to do because that you didn't.
I'm thinking the same thing.
Kind of
a little bit of distracting while I'm working on something else. I think that fits very well. I think practitioner for that too. I want to be very skilled in both. And then the other one's going to be a novice one, I believe.
Right. And so probably you would probably take novice in melee.
Okay, yeah, just in case, you got to protect myself somehow.
Right, it's one of those things. So you're through that. You've chosen your adventurer skills, and then the next steps are to choose your background. And again, this is the part of the game that would go to how you're going to play your character. And the better you are at playing your character, the more rapidly they'll advance. So I have a list of maybe 50.
Oh my god! Yeah, I'm looking at the list right now. You've got you've given players a lot to work with, which I think is incredible.
So we ask the player to pick 2 or 3 initial values for their adventurer, and explain what a value is. A value is something that you prize or cherish. You publicly affirm them. You would choose to do something that way from among alternatives. You would choose to do them even after considering consequences, and you'd act consistently and according with those. So you'd choose, 2 or 3 values for your character.
Okay, so 2 or 3 values. So I see, I'm looking at, I think it's page 23, and I see that there is a lot here in terms of behavior, beliefs, emotional states, talents that can be values. So pick 2 or 3 of the initial values for your adventurer. Okay. Wow, you've given us so much. I think this is such an amazing wealth of information. I think loyalty is pretty good. I think my character, it's very much the honor amongst thieves kind of mentality I'm trying to build here, is loyalty to whatever this goblin character might be sort of set to. And I think honestly, belonging is a great kind of can't think of the word here, but it works very in tandem with it, because it's like almost I'm loyal because I feel like a sense of belonging, and whether that's with the guild or with the
And I
party
think
I'm
that
with.
might, that gives you a whole lot of things for role playing, because goblins can be kind of social outcasts in a number of things, and so those places that allow you to feel belonging, even though members of your people might normally be seen as outcasts, allow you to have belonging and loyalty to that group.
That's so cool. Yeah, I love this.
Okay, and then we get down to personality descriptors, and I say pick one or two positive, one negative, and you may or may not, it's at your choice, pick a neutral one.
All
And
right,
again, this is going to how you're going to play your character.
I think I'm gonna go kind of down the line of one each. I think positive. I think alert is a good one. Just sort of keeping an ear out. I think in the idea of being very loyal, but wanting that sense of belonging, in a world that probably isn't as welcoming, being alert that someone's keeping an eye on you because they don't like you, I think is very useful. For a neutral thing, fidgety is fun. That's so good. Of a little bit of like always nervous, a little bit of nervous. Always feels has to be either improving or at least proving themselves to the group that they're with. And then a negative one. Oh man. I think forgetful's always nice. I think forgetful is kind of a good, just you give him a task and he'll do it, and there might be something on that list that just slipped his mind, and we think is really, really fun.
Great. So that's basically where we would stop. The next thing I would have a character do would be write a backstory narrative, and that's for me as the narrator to try and weave that into their initial adventures and bring the group together and that kind of thing. So I kind of have adapted the rules from a role-playing game called The Pool. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No.
So it's kind of a literary effort where you write a certain 100 words and then the narrator writes 100 words back, and then you take turns kind of crafting the story together. So for that reason, I've taken some things that I like from that, and so I've asked 100 words is what we would ask you to do or less to describe your backstory. But that gives some fodder to the narrator to develop the plot and the storyline and along those lines. And then as you move up, as you advance as a character, you get a chance to add to your backstory so that you actually have the lay of or the story of whoever it is as you develop. So that's how that kind of works there.
Incredible, Mark.
The luck mechanic that we discussed, and then there's the character sheet.
Perfect. Well, I think I'm ready for an adventure. Right now, I want to thank you so much, Mark, for really joining me today and sharing what you've built here.
It's been a pleasure.
This is exciting. I know we've sort of talked before the recording, is that right now it's still going through playtesting, but it's ever so close. And the fact that you've written so much, it definitely tells me that it's just where it's around the corner and we'll be able to play some Adventures Call. Where can people follow you to keep up with your progress?
So there is actually an Adventures Call website. Let me give you the address for that. It is adventurescall.wordpress.com.
Incredible. Yeah, that's great. Then I encourage everyone who wants to keep progress on the up to date on the progress.
And if you look up Adventures Call or hashtag Get Barbaric, there was a kind of a design jam that I participated in about a year ago where you took your game system and said how you would develop a barbarian in it. So if you had a barbarian archetype that you were thinking about running, how would you go about creating that within your game system? So that's actually on YouTube as well. So if someone wanted to kind of run through that process that we just ran through for a barbarian character and see how that might be a little different, they could do that there.
Incredible. Well, Thank you again, Mark. And for everyone here watching, please go follow him. Go to the WordPress to make sure that you keep up to date with all the new releases and when it finally does drop. And until then, we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.